Assalamu alaikum. Today you will learn about Spring Framework. Before moving on to any of the further topics, there is only one basic requirement. You should know programming in basic Java. So without any further ado, let's get started. Spring Framework has a lot of modules such as Core Container, Spring Web, Spring AOP, Spring Data Access, Spring Messaging, Spring Security, Spring Test and many others. In this series, you are going to learn about Core Container module of Spring Framework, which is the most essential module. So what is Spring Framework? Suppose you are home alone and you have to work on some house chores such as cooking, laundry, or maybe washing dishes. And since you are alone, you have to manage all the house appliances all by yourself, such as electric bulb, air conditioner, water heater, or electric fan. So whenever you need some light, you go to the electric bulb and switch it on. And if you need to set the room temperature, you go to air conditioner and set the temperature according to your need. Similarly with fan, and similarly if you want to set the water temperature, you go to geyser and set the water temperature according to your need. But don't you think this is a very non-productive way and you won't be able to focus more on your house chores? So what you do? Well, there is a smart solution. You install a home automation system in which you still have all your appliances, but instead of going to each appliances individually, you have a middleman. This middleman can be Alexa. You just ask Alexa to switch on the light and it will switch on the electric bulb for you. And if you need to set the water temperature, you just ask Alexa to do that. And similarly with air conditioner and fan. So you can focus more on your house chores rather than running to each appliances and managing them by yourself. So you see, this is a very smart solution and you can focus more on your house chores rather than managing each appliances individually. But hold on a second. What does this all have to do with Spring Framework? Well, Spring Framework more or less works in a very similar manner. Instead of having Alexa, you have Spring Framework that manages all your objects in your project. So you can focus more on your project and Spring Framework will be responsible for creating and managing the objects for you. So you don't have to create and manage objects by yourself. For example, if you have a bulb class, Spring Framework will create bulb object, or if you have a geyser class in your project, it will create a geyser object, and similarly all the objects for you. We will look into it in more detail, but for now, what is Spring Framework? Spring Framework is open source framework that helps the developer to build maintainable and loosely coupled Java applications. In other words, Spring Framework is like a brain of your application that manages all the different parts of your application. So like I said, Spring Framework creates the objects for you so that you don't have to worry about the objects and focus more on developing the project. In Spring Framework, these objects are called beans. But what does these beans look like? Or where are these beans getting created? Well, these beans are created in a container called Spring Container, which is provided by Spring Framework itself. So whenever the developer requests for any object or bean, the Spring Framework creates these beans with the help of a predefined configuration. This configuration can be XML or Java file, and based on this configuration, Spring Container creates those beans and hand it over to the developer. Now you see the roles are reversed over here. Instead of developer creating the objects or beans, it is the Spring Container in control of creating and managing the objects or beans. Hence it is also called IOC container, which is Inversion of Control. Now in the next lecture, we shall look into it in more detail. So stay tuned.